Good evening and welcome to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's episode 40. A lot has been happening, a hell of a lot in the last few hours. We've got some massive news coming your way. And joining me on tonight's show, as is always the case, the man in the know, Steve Curtin. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Oh, thanks, Tonci, and thanks for that compliment to start the show as well. And thanks for having us back again. It's very good to be here on the Geelong Region Soccer Show, the show that, unlike that of FC Seoul, the audience is entirely free of blown-up dolls. But what a great weekend it's been around Geelong. How did you enjoy it, mate?
Well, first of all, we've had some, it was great weather, some fantastic weather, I tell you what. Been absolutely delightful, an opportunity to get out and about and all of that kind of stuff. So it's been really good. Certainly cannot complain, that's for sure. Apart from that, mate, I think everyone's really keen to know what is going to happen with the return to football. And literally, just in the last 5, 10, 15 minutes, we've been getting some groundbreaking news to happen. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. But episode 40, mate, it's our 10th episode this year. In a year where nothing's been happening, we've still managed to cover so much. And it's absolutely fantastic, really, when you think about it.
It is, mate. It is. It's good because I think we've done this is our 8th show that we've done from home. And the response has been, when we thought maybe there would be low interest because football's not happening, the response from the general community of football people around Geelong has been absolutely fantastic. We've had so many great guests. We've had so many great people watching every single week and commenting and participating and really enjoying it. And I encourage everyone to keep it coming. It's a bit of a barometer of the Geelong footballing community, is this show at times. And I think, if this is anything to go by, despite COVID-19, I think the Geelong landscape could be in a positive position.
Well, I tell you what, in the next few weeks, we're going to get into several clubs, some really good clubs. Galaxy United, Breakwater Eagles, Geelong Rangers, just some of the clubs that will be coming up. They've been fantastic. A big shout out to Geelong Galaxy and to Breakwater Eagles, who have been absolutely amazing. They've come on board as sponsors of the next few episodes. We've also got a business sponsor that has come on board. They'll be sponsoring an upcoming episode. And in that upcoming episode, they have nominated the Geelong Rangers as their club in focus. So some fantastic things happening here. It's great to see. The comment section is going crazy. Already it's going absolutely nuts. Brenton Ray, who is our unofficial reporter, correspondent, if you like, Brenton. Big cheerio to you. He's feeding us lots of information in the comments section. So, folks, if you do want to make sure to read some of that stuff, we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be bringing some late breaking news. And Steve, let's get straight into. Oh no, actually, before we do that, let's announce who our guests are tonight. So, what's happening in the show tonight?
So tonight we've got two guests from City Hall, Tonci, and that's EDDY, KONTELJ and KYLIE GRZYBEK, the two councillors for Windermere and Brownbill Ward in the city of Greater Geelong. So looking forward to having a chat with them and finding out their opinions on some of the issues that affect community sport, especially football, around the Geelong region.
Oh, look, absolutely. I think both of those folks were going to be I take my cap off to both of them. They've been amazing for football here in Geelong, both of them. Look, they're going to tell us a little bit about the funding announced in the recent budget, the council budget. Some big news for a lot of football clubs to come out of that. You know, much needed news, much needed funds. And that's going to be fantastic. But also big news about a possible state regional facility or sub-regional facility for Geelong. It's going to take several steps. It's going to take several years. But the first, I guess, step has been ticked off. And we'll find out from both councillors, GRZYBEK and KONTELJ, a little bit more about that. What else is coming on, mate?
Tonight we're going to talk about can we call it a radical proposal or maybe just a very sensible proposal to extend the footballing season beyond the sort of September finish that it has at the moment and it comes from one of the great footballing minds in the Geelong community. So stay tuned for that after our interview section tonight.
Don't know about a great footballing mind, but yes, we're going to unleash a blueprint for a revolutionary new off-season league competition. And look, the presentation goes for about 5 minutes, but the ongoing debate, the ongoing conversations hopefully will last a lot longer than 5 minutes. And you folks will be the first to know about it tonight. So, Steve, I'm really looking forward to it. But let's get into the news. There's some big news coming out of Coria. Let's turn to that first. What's happening down at Hume Reserve?
All right. Well, let's go to Hume Reserve first. So there's been let's say quite a busy week at Hume Reserve for Coria Soccer Club. An eventful week that's seen long-standing coach Ante Didalitza and friend of the program. He was on the show when they were leading into what would have been round one. Ante's made the difficult decision to stand down from the coaching role. Didalitza, who'd held the role since 2016 when he took over from Robbie Nogler, cited the challenges of juggling coaching, working and family commitments as a reason for his decision. So now, hot on the heels of that bombshell, we have heard yesterday that ex-Corio and Geelong player and assistant coach Chris Balabarova has been appointed as seniors coach at Corio for the 2020 season. And Chris has also persuaded former Geelong senior coach Christian Bright to come on board as an assistant coach. So an eventful week at Hume Reserve, you might say. Yeah,
look, apparently I did speak to Corio president Mario Gregorio a few days back. The news, as unfortunate as it may be, was somewhat expected. Ante has got his family and business interests and what you're not and that kind of stuff. So obviously there's some of that as well. But look, Chris Balabarova, an aggressive centre back in his day. I guess he's an old school style of player. Certainly will be interesting to see as a coach what he's like. I think he's going to fit in really well at Corio. I think Christian Bright, who is a brilliant mind, a brilliant footballing brain, who's been out of the game for a few years. He's had some of his own business interests as well. He's going to be there almost as an assistant coach. Now, there's an article in today's Geelong Advertiser came out late this afternoon. Mate, everything's been happening today. And Chris Balabarova actually says, he's sort of looking to Christian Bright to being that assistant coach, almost like a football analyst. But it also mentions that Ante Didalitza is going to stay on as a consultant. So some good news coming out of Hume Reserve.
Yeah, absolutely, and congratulations to Chris on the new appointment, and also we have to pay our tribute to Ante, who's done a great job in guiding Cryo to promotion, and he's always been available for us on the program here, Tonci.
Yeah, he has. He's been fantastic. So look, some news coming out of Football Victoria headquarters, a city of Greater Geelong as well, with regards to a return to football. So look, as yet we don't know the exact dates, but the sooner the better, and can't wait for that. So moving on to the next bit of news.
Okay, so we go to National Volunteer Week.
Oh yeah,
and as part of celebrating National Volunteer Week this week, Football Victoria yesterday paid tribute to Geelong Rangers club legend Lynn Toll. A member of the club for over 30 years, Lynn is a regular fixture in the canteen at Myers Reserve, which is even named after her. So it's fantastic to see these people that actually make clubs function in such a good way that they do, getting the accolades that they deserve, not just the guys and girls out on the park. It's an excellent effort by Lynn, and very well done.
Absolutely. Every club's got those tireless volunteers, but Lynn Toll is so revered up at Myers Reserve. I think they've actually got the kitchen named after her, or the canteen. So that just goes to show you how much of an iconic figure Lynn Toll is up at Geelong Rangers. So well done to Lynn, and well done to Geelong Rangers there. Steve, City Hall. City Hall has come out with some really, really important breaking news today, this afternoon, in fact.
Yeah, just late this afternoon. So it looks like we've had correspondence to the community club tenants of the City of Greater Geelong facilities. And it's just a bit of a letter to explain the state of play with returning to using their facilities. Obviously, this relates to the clubs that are within the City of Greater Geelong municipality and use council land for their football pitches. And some of the information says to ensure the safe resumption of activity at our sporting grounds and facilities, we ask that our tenants complete the attached template developed by Sport and Recreation Victoria. If you have already completed this form to a relevant sporting association, we ask you to provide us with a copy as well. And it's just got some details for submitting that. And it says then, importantly, Tonci, following receipt of your completed form and noting requirements have been met, we will send you an email providing you with approval to return to play.
That's very important. So people out there, coaches, parents, well, parents might actually be saying we're used to this. We don't want to go back to football, especially if it's going to get colder. But the reality is, people who are itching to get back out on the training track, it's not that straightforward. The clubs themselves, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. It's like about a 10 question questionnaire, I suppose, that has to be filled out, or it's possibly even more than that. So the clubs still have to do their part. They still have to do all the preparatory work. I know the Geelong Rangers, speaking of Geelong Rangers, again, yesterday on their Facebook page, they announced, or they showed pictures of the extent that they're going. They've actually acquired, sanitizers, printed out the signage, started putting everything into getting ready. But obviously all the clubs at the moment, they need to do all these processes, I guess, in place, and then they can start training. But look, speaking to some of the presidents and the clubs, particularly the NPL clubs, which I had an opportunity to contact most of the NPL clubs earlier this afternoon, and there was an article on our Facebook page describing how much they're itching to get back into it. There is still work that needs to be done, processes that need to be put into place. And even a club like North Geelong that owns its own ground, it still has to put into place and schedules and all of those kind of things, because clubs like North Geelong, Breakwater, Bell Park, who do have their own facilities, they're still bound by the same restrictions as the council-run facilities. So, look, hopefully next few days, there's a lot of hard-working officials who are working tirelessly behind the scenes. So National Volunteer Week, To all of our clubs here in Geelong and to all of their volunteers, we really, really thank you, salute you, acknowledge you. And if you're a member of or a supporter of these clubs, now is the time to get behind your club, Steve.
That's right, Tonci. It's a good initiative that Football Victoria is celebrating National Volunteers Week. And as we mentioned earlier, the tribute to Lynn Toll, which came through, and I'm sure that there'll be another tribute each day from Football Victoria. So stay tuned to see and read about some of these other stories of some characters, some of them colourful characters that provide us with the chance to get out in the park, because we couldn't do it without them. Isn't that right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I'm going to have to break you there. There's we've just received a media release from Football Victoria, and it is. I'm going to read the media release in its entirety. Football Victoria sets proposed dates for return to play, ladies and gentlemen. As a result of the Victorian government's decision to ease its conditions of State 3 restrictions relating to the coronavirus pandemic, Football Victoria is now in the process of finalising its return to play strategy. Already, government decisions have allowed football clubs to resume training in groups of 10 or less, and we expect that number to be increased in the following weeks, provided there are no major future outbreaks of coronavirus. FB is committed to taking a cautious and sensible approach with regard to the safety of all participants in our sport, be they players, coaches, staff or fans. However, we also understand there is a pressing need for clarity regarding when competitions are expected to resume. FV, Football Victoria, that is, has been engaged in ongoing discussions with FFA, state and federal governments, including Sport and Rec Victoria, and with clubs at all levels to establish a suitable time to return to play. This has involved the development of a number of scenarios, including the one below, which are still being finalised. It is important to note that for some clubs, restarting will be a relatively simple measure, while others have a large number of issues to consider before they can resume. Football Victoria's goal is to get everyone playing again as soon as it's safe to do so. As a result of the latest easing of restrictions, Football Victoria is targeting the following start dates for the proposed resumption of play. Hear this. Breaking news. For our community clubs, including community juniors, the proposed resumption date is June 28, 2020. June 28. For our NPL junior clubs, the proposed resumption date is June 20, 2020. For our NPL senior clubs, we are hopeful of resuming play in early July. This continues to be worked through with the club as we understand the added complexities of restarting professional and semi-professional clubs. It goes on to say, of course, these dates are our target dates only and are subject to the further advice of the federal and state chief health officers. Our decision to go public with these dates is indicative of our commitment to ensure that competitive football at all levels returns as soon as possible. Yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. There's still a little bit more there, but we'll be putting up that press release immediately after the show finishes. But you can probably get that on Football Victoria's website and what you're not, okay? Massive news, Steve. Massive news. It's interesting that the NPL is starting or is proposed to start that little bit later. What do you make of that?
Look, it's a difficult one, Tonci. We know the issues that have been raised since the whole COVID-19 thing started. Those clubs, they do have significant wage bills, and if they have to play behind closed doors, they can't make it. Obviously, some of those clubs have been quite upset about that prospect and not wanting to play, while others have. So getting everyone on the same page there is behind the scenes, I believe it's no mean feat.
I mean, some good comments coming through. Bobby Hayes from Geelong Soccer Club. Where will the clubs get money to pay their bills? Santino Mamoni, the legend, that is Santino. Football is nothing without fans. I agree. And look, and for these NPL clubs who do pay their players, who do have quite large costs, they need the fans. And I reckon, this is my take on this without having analysed it too much, because we've just got it now. We haven't even had a chance to let it sink in. I believe they're kind of trying to stretch it out, extend it out, so that hopefully by July, early July, late July, whatever the case may be, we might be in a situation where maybe 100 fans, maybe 200 fans will be able to be allowed back. Maybe that, and you know what? That is the start of things. You know, all right, for clubs like North Geelong, who've got a pretty big, strong fan base, even Geelong as well, maybe 100 fans might not be enough. 200 fans might not be enough, but it might be better than nothing, you know. It's all hypothetical, Steve. We don't know. This is, as the press release says, it comes down to, that's the projected, or that's the hopeful time frame. But if, you know, things deteriorate, it could be one step forward, 5 steps back. We don't know. But at least they're giving us a little bit of an idea. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's a start. It's an interesting point, like you talk about fans potentially being allowed in by then. A lot of NPL fixtures at the top flight of NPL, they might attract, some of them might only attract 300 people, whereas others might attract 1,500. So you think about some of the venues, like particularly like places like Green Gully Reserve, you could probably have a few hundred people in there and be quite well spread out on the hill and on the hard standing area on the broadcast, on the club room side. So every ground has its own quirks, and I think, we might end up getting to a stage where we're able to let crowds in, assuming that the grounds aren't too packed. But at that point, we're not there yet. We're still at a point where we do have very stringent guidelines, which surround just being able to get out to training, such as you're not arriving more than 10 minutes before the start and leaving straight away, and not even any heading of the ball allowed still at this point. So I guess we have to just go one step at a time.
Absolutely. Look, and Barbaros John Carra makes a comment, and it's probably a good comment there. The no fans in canteens is just an initial measure. As restrictions are eased, so will those, right? Any question marks? Well, it's hypothetical. Point, yeah. It's a good point, though, because everything is being done so, you know, in stages, in steps, I suppose. So, look, a lot is happening. A lot is happening, I tell you what. We don't, you know, in 1 week, so much has changed that, you know, in a week's time, a lot more may change as well. But let's put that aside. Let's park it aside, even though it's hard, because that is the main topic at the moment. Steve, is there anything else that's happening in the news desk?
I just wanted to run through a couple more of those measures from Football Victoria last week. Again, like we said, training at the moment has to be no contact, no handshakes, no tackles, no high fives. You must provide your details, including your full name, FFA number, phone number, date and time of attendance, and confirmation as to whether you've downloaded the COVID Safe app to the club coach official for the purposes of contact tracing if you do attend training. And even things like, if training bibs are used, you will be allocated that bib. You must take it home and wash it yourself. So, I can remember certainly when I played, there were some pretty stinky training bibs. That might be a good measure just to have. So it might be a good measure to have just all the time in general.
Do you really need training bibs, though? Because you can't have games. And that's the purpose of having training bibs, having them for games. So you can't have even rondo or anything like that. You can't have those competition things where bibs may be required. So, you know, the whole purpose of bibs is to have that competitive element, which you can't at the moment. And I guess really, let's be honest, this first phase is one to test that you know, this process is okay. Once this process works, it moves on to the next step. The other thing is to get the clubs back and the players themselves, the coaches, a bit of mental health. Get them out of the house. Get them at least being able to sort of interact, if nothing else, you know, verbally type of thing. You know, Lisa Brooks from Rangers says crazy times. I agree, Lisa. There's that comment. Crazy times. Now, here's another good comment from Mike Parker, president of Armstrong United. Season start is one thing. Season length is the big one. Players need to be registered to be able to come back to training. Cool. But we have no idea how long season will go for, and therefore how much to charge to cover club costs, etc. Look, that's a good point. And someone did make
really good point.
Yeah, someone actually did make a point. I think it was on social media the other day. There is a possibility, maybe, and don't quote me on this, that players just may need to be registered. But at the moment, they're not going to be paying anything, simply registered for the sake of being able to cover them for insurance purposes and what you're not. But I guess the important thing here is we don't know if it's going to be a 2-month season, if it's going to be a 4-month season or a 6-month season or whatever the case may be. And obviously the FFA component, the FV component of the registrations will probably be a flat rate like it is every year anyway. So then it's the clubs up to them. They don't really know how much they charge. What I would suggest to the clubs, charge a flat $100 fee. And after that, if anything extra has to be paid, they can pay, in 2 months' time, in 3 months' time, or whatever the case may be. If it's going to be less than $100, well, refund it or keep it for the following year. Because obviously a lot of people at the moment will be cash strapped at the, coming out of COVID. So back to what Lisa Brooks said, crazy times.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a sensible approach, Tonci, to do something like that, a flat rate to get started. And then, yes, a bit more work for the financial people at the clubs who are volunteers also in this National Volunteers Week. But it seems like maybe the sensible only approach. Now, can we go to more of a light-hearted point now? Armstrong United have embarked the Pelicans have embarked on a virtual away day, challenging its members to clock up a combined total of 376 kilometres over the weekend. The distance equivalent to a journey to all other clubs in the region and back again. By the end of the challenge, they ended up with completing 513.48 kilometres, and very well done to all involved. And just another good example of how our local clubs can and have been staying engaged with its players and members during these otherwise challenging times. And if your club's got more stories like that, please get in touch and let us know. We'd love to be able to talk about them on the show next week and in subsequent weeks.
Absolutely.
And finally, we saw the return of the Bundesliga on the weekend, Tonci, just for an international flavour. I believe I've got the backpack behind me there for FC Köln of Cologne. I guess they're my team by default there. They had a 2-2 with Mainz. They actually squandered a 2-0 lead there, so not too good. But you watched a bit of the big one between Dortmund and Schalke, Tonci.
I did. Borussia Dortmund and Schalke. And there I was on Saturday night, just channel surfing on the couch. And I thought, all of a sudden the Bundesliga comes on, and I quickly sort of BEN Sports. You got to get a subscription, blah, blah, blah. Because I just let go of my Fox Sports subscription, thinking, I don't need it, And then within 5 minutes, I was watching the game. Simple as that. You logged on very quickly, downloaded the app, streamed it onto the TV. Wasn't hard to do. And on top of that, the first month is a bonus complimentary month. So it was good. Good to see football back in action. It was, look, it's great. It was just great. A Saturday night, something to look forward to. Live football. You don't know what the outcome of the game is, so you can't Google the result. You can't fast forward the result of the game or any of that sort of stuff. It was good. It was really, for me, I really enjoyed it. And look, apparently, I read somewhere the figures for the first round were astounding. They said something like it was double the take-up rate or double the number of views that they normally get. Now, there was a figure that was quoted. Normally, they get to it between 2.5, 3.5 million. And this one attracted close to 6 million opening day. Now, I'm not too sure if that's within Germany, because can someone tell me how much is Germany's population? I think it's about 50, 60 million or something like that. So that sounds like it might be... Yeah, that sounds like it might be right for within Germany, but how many there would have been outside of Germany, Australia included, tuning in and watching it? It's a start of things. By the end of this month, early next month, more leagues will be coming on board. And, happy days are here to stay, I'd say. I'm going to say that anyway.
Let's hope so. Well, there's a really good YouTube video I watched leading into that round that explains some of the measures that the Bundesliga was taking. And things that you take for granted in football, like the players walking out of the tunnel together, that's a no-no at the moment.
Yep.
The team uses sort of a multiple amount of change rooms, so they're not all in the same room at one time. They're arriving and they're warming up at different times. There's a whole lot of measures there. Even the staff on match day are limited as much as they can, and they've got people coming to the ground from sort of 7 a.m. and earlier to do their jobs rather than have people all working at the ground to get the game up and happening all at once.
Fantastic. Well, mate, we've got heaps coming up tonight. We've got lots of guests. We've got lots of discussion. We've already gone almost half an hour just in the news section. So this is absolutely massive. That's for sure. So look, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break. And when we do return, we're going to come back and we're going to have our first guest who's going to be there, who's waiting in the green room. So we won't be too long, that's for sure. Do hang around. Don't go away. Okay, welcome back to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's all happening here. We've got lots and lots of guests coming for you, and we're going to have our very, very first guest, and it's KYLIE GRZYBEK. She's on the she's about to come on screen very, very shortly. We can't get EDDY KONTELJ. I don't know where EDDY KONTELJ is. KYLIE, welcome to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Great to see your smiling face, KYLIE. We're very good. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm liking the Western United shirt in the background there, KYLIE. It looks good.
We've got a foot in both camps, guys.
Oh, there's a victory one too.
There is a victory one on the rest. There was Melbourne City. No, Melbourne City. No.
Can you hear me, Tonci?
Now we can hear EDDY. We can hear EDDY KONTELJ, the man. We're going to have to put up your photo, EDDY, or something like that. We can hear you. We just can't see you, unfortunately. But, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and it looks like I'm on the screen, but obviously I'm not showing up, but I can see myself on the screen, and I can see all of you guys.
Okay, well, something not happening right. EDDY, I'll get you to just log off and then log back on, and then hopefully we might be able to get EDDY back in time for our interview. But look, if we can't get there, KYLIE, quickly whilst we're waiting for EDDY, how's the COVID lockdown crisis affected you? Has it given you an opportunity to enjoy your three boys back at home, or have things been really, really hectic as usual for yourself?
It's actually been pretty good to be spending time at home, and doing these things via Skype is really a different way of interacting with the community. But everybody's been really good. Everyone's understanding why we're having to stay at home, and I think as Victorians we've all done an amazing job so far.
Now we still haven't got EDDY on the line, so we're just going to have to continue without him. Steve, have you got any questions you want to ask KYLIE for starters?
Yeah, KYLIE. So not only are you a councillor, along with Anthony Aitken for the Northern or Windermere Ward, you are also the Deputy Mayor, assisting Mayor Stephanie Asher. How are you finding the added responsibility?
Oh, look, it was a real privilege that my fellow councillors were able to choose Stephanie and I for the leadership role. I think that it's just an opportunity to represent the City of Greater Geelong. And look, we're all here. So EDDY, Anthony, all of the other councillors, we're just here to represent our community and make sure that we can get the things that they expect of council to do. And, one of the things is the sporting stadiums and the facilities, as you spoke about in the news earlier. We were able to hopefully facilitate some return back to facilities today, if not tomorrow, if everybody returns their forms.
Now, EDDY's trying to join us, but have we got EDDY on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line, and don't know what's wrong with the picture, guys, but I can see all you guys, and I can see myself on the screen, but don't know why.
Okay. Well, we've got you there, so at least we've got your. Maybe you're having a bad hair day or something like that. Is that the real reason why you don't want to come online?
Very rarely do I have a good hair day.
All right, let's get to some serious stuff now, EDDY. Let's talk about the recent council draft budget, which was released last week. Or a couple of weeks ago, and the funding that has been allocated to two football clubs in your ward. And let's talk about Geelong Rangers and Myers Reserve, and Cryer Soccer Club and Hume Reserve. Tell us a bit about those respective allocations?
Well, look, the budget's huge this year, and a lot of the intent around the budget was to not only support sporting organisations, but also to help stimulate the economy and also invest in infrastructure. And so there's a capital works allocation of about 161 million in the budget for this new financial year, and of that, there's about 1.3 million dollars of fresh money for soccer. And we know that over the last term of council, the last 3 years, there's been millions of dollars put into soccer, through the various clubs, and I'm sure that KYLIE will speak to that as well. But in this budget, yes, Hume Reserve is having an allocation of about 350,000, and I know Mario and the boys there are very happy with that. 150 of that's going towards the planning of the pavilion and change room upgrade, and then there's about 200,000 going to upkeep of Hume Reserve itself, fencing, some paths, some furniture and the likes. And so that's been a long time coming, but the good thing is that KONTELJ have been doing some great planning. What this will allow us to do is get the plans absolutely cemented, and then in the forthcoming budgets we'll be able to then lobby to get the remainder of funding. So I'd like to think that over 2 budgets we can deliver that facility. And then up at Myers Reserve, as we know, that houses a number of different sporting clubs, but namely Rangers, a soccer club with KYLIE Chapman at the helm there. We've got about $500,000 going into that for the bitumisation and curb and channel of the roadway that goes through that sporting precinct. And most people that have been there in winter to watch soccer would not appreciate the road that they're driving on during the muddy season. This will now really finish that facility off. And then there's obviously funding going into other clubs, none less more important than the money that's going to the planning of a regional facility. But KYLIE and I will talk to that later. And then obviously there's Leopold and Drysdale that are also getting funding. So about sort of $1.3 million going to fresh money going to soccer.
Let's talk about those clubs across town as well. Leopold as well, getting some funding there. What's that involve? And Drysdale as well. Maybe we'll talk to KYLIE about the Drysdale one. But let's talk to you about the Leopold one out at Estuary Reserve, I believe.
Yeah, so for Leopold, again, it's facility upgrades, the planning of the facility upgrades. So about 150,000 going to Leopold, and I know that the president there is a good colleague of KYLIE's, who isn't a good friend and colleague of KYLIE.
Jared Larkins, yeah, that's the old the TAC connection there, I think.
You know when people speak to me, they call me EK. It's not Eddie KONTELJ, it's Eddie and KYLIE. So we're two things in the pot. And I'll let KYLIE talk to Drysdale.
Yeah, KYLIE. First of all, let's talk about Drysdale. Then we'll talk about a club in your ward. But first of all, the Drysdale Sports Precinct. That's quite significant because on top of that was actually passed. Was it at last week's council meeting?
Yeah, the Drysdale Master Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Drysdale Master Plan. So that was passed. It's the very high-level detail about what the planning is going to go into where Drysdale Soccer Club is located. What we've got in the budget is approximately 200,000, I think, to make sure that we get, landscaping, etc. But the bulk of the amount of the money has been allocated from federal and state government. There's $8.5 million going into that facility there for all those people down the Ballerine. So we're really excited about that.
And let's return to your ward, the northern-based Windermere ward, which you've got another great councillor there, AA, Anthony Aiken. He does a fantastic job as well. He's very, very well respected in the community. But the big news there is the Lara Sporting Precinct, and which obviously Lara United Football Club is going to get a lot of much needed upgrades there as well. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, we've got. Lara was the recipient of the grant, the lighting grant in the last round. So we should have lights by January next year. all the planning is going into effect for that now. The sporting upgrade at the Lara is stage 1, which is netball and tennis. So it's not soccer, but it's still a $2 million investment into that sporting precinct as a whole. So look, Lara, we've done really well over the last 10 or so years. We've got a facility, we've got a room, and now we're getting lights. And I think that's what we need to have the basis of all sporting clubs across Geelong. You need those fundamental pieces to be able to make sure that you can enjoy as a winter sport.
Steve, we lost you there for a second, but you're back with us. Yes, yeah, I had to jump out. I couldn't hear Eddie or Kylie, so I jumped out. Now I can hear Kylie, and I assume I can hear Eddie as well. Can you hear me okay, Eddie? Hello, Eddie. Have we lost Eddie?
I can hear you, Steve. We're all good.
He's coming back. He's coming back. We've lost Eddie, and that was the next question was going to be for Eddie. So
that's
he's back. Oh, fantastic! We can hear him now. That's great. Good stuff. Eddie. Well, let's talk to you now. Now that you're back, let's talk about the sport of football as a whole. Your own family has been involved for many, many years with football, with all your daughters at one stage having played the sport, or in some cases still pulling on the boots. What's your personal assessment of the code here in Geelong? Are we in a healthy state? They still playing, Eddie? Good on her. Yeah, it is. Now, Eddie. Now, apparently, people are saying Ahmed Idris last 3 minutes had no sound from Eddie Murray. No sound. Okay, so we can hear you for whatever reason, but it's obviously not transmitting. So we might get you to just log off and log back on, and hopefully that will sort the problem. But yeah, we just seems to be having some issues with audio. Now, if the people in the comments, can they actually say, because our audio is fine, can you hear the rest of us? So we'll push on with Kylie. We've heard what Eddie's had to say. Your own assessment about the state of football in here, in the region, and can it be done better or can it improve?
I think there's real opportunity. Look, I think what we've done so far is amazing. We've got some great leadership, with Joe Plummer having been at the GRFC head and now Mike McKinstry. I think we can really got an opportunity to take it so much further. And I think that there are, with 2 NPL clubs, there is opportunity for more. We want the NPL back for women if we can. In Geelong, we've got so much to offer. We just need to capitalise on that and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to play at any level they want to play at and still live in Geelong. So that's really important. And I think we've got some amazing people in Clubland. Talking to Mario at KYLIE today, and there's some amazing people all across Geelong and the Bellarine. We just need to make sure that we can work together, and that's really the key that I'm hoping that Mike McKinstry can take forward with GRFC, is to make sure that we can work as one, because we're stronger together.
Steve?
Okay, well, we'll go with questions for KYLIE again. There have been suggestions in years gone by that a sub-regional facility may be planned for Armstrong Creek growth area, namely in the Warren Ponds area, not far from the train station, I think just to the south there. More recently, there has been talk of the regional facility being actually situated in the northwestern growth area that is likely to stretch from Batesford to Lara. Is that just pure speculation at the moment, or is there an actual vision where it may be located there?
Look, we're really pleased that in the budget we've got $50,000 in the draft budget for the next financial year to make a business case to actually make sure that we can get a regional facility. And by regional facility, Eddie and I went and visited Ballarat a couple of months ago now, the Moorshed Park out there. I think the opportunity that we want to make sure this business case that it stacks up to make sure we can get a facility, if not as big as that, maybe bigger. There are so many opportunities, from mini Roos galas to country champs to NPL derbies, A-League. I mean, Western United has really brought Geelong on the map by being in Western Victoria. Why can't we see a rectangle pitch that hosts us with the real atmosphere that a soccer game should have? I think it's a reality. We've got opportunity in the northern western growth areas in the northern parts of Geelong. There's been allocated a few spots for a regional sporting facility. Eddie and I and a few other councils are hoping that is soccer. We've got a real opportunity for land to be set aside. And if we can make this business case stack up, we want to make sure we can advocate both to our federal and state colleagues as well.
Now, you mentioned your trip to Ballarat, and we actually had you and Eddie on our first show back this year, I think way back in February, and you talked about your trip to Ballarat and how fruitful it was. What was just some of the food for thought that you brought back and from Ballarat that you believe we could utilise here in Geelong, but also maybe, things that can be improved on the Ballarat complex? Because it is great, but, it's already been now 4 or 5 years, so it's already starting to age in certain things.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have the benefit of learning from some of those things that they've done in Ballarat, and kudos to the councillors out there. They will manage to get that facility up and running. More seats, that's really important. I think the learning is that we're going to get more seating availability so we can host games, 5,000, 6,000 seats. If it's possible, I'd love to aim big. The opportunity is that we've got, having gone to Shepparton last year for the country champs and the tournaments over there, they've got, 8 or 9 pitches around a show pitch, so we can host tournaments, things like Croatian Cup, with North Geelong. Why can't we have that in Geelong? Why can't we have that at a regional facility and just showcase what Geelong is all about?
Eddie, I think we've got Eddie back online. Eddie, have we got you online?
Can you hear me?
We can. We still can't see you for some reason, but we can hear you. Eddie, what about yourself? What did you take from the Ballarat trip, and that maybe gave you inspiration or maybe food for thought? Kylie's talked about the provision of extra seats so that we can have NPL, FFA Cup and A-League and things like that. Absolutely brilliant. And concerts in the off-season, maybe rock and roll concerts as well, if we've got more seats. What did you see? What did you take from it all, Eddie?
Yeah, look, first of all, sorry that my connection keeps dropping out. Must be better connection in Lara than in Geelong.
It is actually. We've got him. I guess what I took out of it was exactly what you just said before, which was probably the inspiration to go forward. So we've been talking about this for some time now, a regional type facility, and since Kylie's come on council, I've now got a really strong ally.
And it's been really fortunate that we've been able to garner the support from the other councillors to put some funding into the budget for the business plan. But I agree with Kylie. I think what it gave us was an example of what could be achieved on a larger scale here in Geelong. We would need to go bigger to cater for the opportunities that we have. And I don't think you'll mind me saying this. I think it's a facility that we could use to make sure that we optimise everything that's there, so that in the off season we could potentially also host other types of sports that use a square pitch, and that would make it so much more sustainable. But in terms of hosting those great tournaments that are all over Australia, that unfortunately we've struggled a little over the years, and you know, one of them is the Croatian tournament that comes from time to time. It's sad that it's been postponed this year. They're the types of tournaments that we'll be able to host really comfortably going forward.
Absolutely. Steve?
Oh, sorry, I just couldn't hear Eddie at all there, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We've got some issues, serious issues with Eddie, that's for sure. I can hear him. Kylie, can you hear Eddie?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. So some of us can hear him, some of us can't hear him for whatever reason. Yeah, I mean, they're very, very valid points. And we've got some good comments, actually. Bobby Hayes says, we need a rectangular stadium so we can run A-League games, even W League games. We can run finals in it, also NRL games. I agree. Now, I think we had Barbaros John Curra has a really good question. What is included in a regional facility? Kylie, to you, what do you envisage happening in a regional facility or offering in a regional facility?
I think that first of all is a show pitch, right? A show pitch has got the seating, the standing room, and the opportunity to host those bigger games, those, WNPL, even the Matildas at some point, the A-League. That's the first piece. The opportunity that then there's grounds around that facility, so smaller grounds, some training pitches, even opportunities for synthetic. And also then the facility can become like a function centre. So, if you're that way inclined, you might want to have a wedding there.
Wedding, yeah, end of season, end of year presentations and that kind of stuff. But yeah. I mean, we've seen in the northern suburbs, we've seen the Leisure Time Centre prove to be extremely popular. And there was always speculation. Would it prove popular enough? Would the clubs really take to it? And they have. They really, really have, as well as all of the other competitions that are run out of that facility. So the potential is certainly there. Eddie, what do you think? How much would a facility like what we're talking about cost? Ballpark figure.
I hope people can hear me. I'm not sure who can hear me, who can't. But I know that the Ballarat facility was around 13 million, and that was for 4 pitches and about 500 seating in the stadium, and then another 150 in their function area. So I would be assuming it's 20 million plus for something in Geelong.
And just in case you couldn't hear that, Eddie says it could be about 20 million plus. The Ballarat League had around, the Ballarat facility was about $13 million. And Kylie, it's been about 5 years, is that right, that the Ballarat facility's been around?
That's right, about 5 years. And they had some really progressive thinking council and officers there to say that we really need to invest in soccer. And that's what we're saying now. We're a bit behind the 8 ball, but I think this is an opportunity to really catch up and put Geelong on the soccer map.
Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah. Well, actually, I could hear Ed that time, so I heard it when it come to talking about the dollars and cents. I did hear that answer. So
selective hearing.
I'm fully enlightened now. Yeah. Kylie, question for you: with so many new estates popping up in Lara, recently, former international footballer from the Geelong region, Joey Diddlitzer, on our show talked about kids getting benefits from things like Cruyff courts, which are the small outdoor style five-a-side street courts that exist in each sort of neighbourhood in the Netherlands. What could the Geelong football community do to perhaps influence developers to include these in future estates via their development contribution plan fees?
Really good point. I hadn't actually heard of them until now. I think the opportunity comes from a developer if they're putting in a sporting facility, or if they're putting in a regional park. Why not make it part of that park? We put in ovals instead of goals. To me, that's real opportunity. And if those people are going to be playing soccer, and you see the growth in soccer in Australia over the past 10 years or so, this is something we should definitely be looking at. This is something that we should be putting in so that those kids start from, when they're toddlers, and by the time they're playing football at 13 or 14 years of age, they're representing regions, they're representing countries.
Fantastic. Guys, we really appreciate you taking the time out. You're very, very busy, and tonight you have council briefings as well. So just taking the time out to talk to us for half an hour or so about some of these issues have been massive. So we really, really appreciate that. Eddie, before we finish, the next steps in getting to some normality, we've already seen tonight or this afternoon with council, or the council sports and recreational parks department, outlining guidelines and the processes involved now for the clubs to get back on the park. What's your comment regarding that, and what's your advice to clubs with regards to the next step?
Can you still hear me, Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks, Tonci. Yeah, look, obviously today's a big step in allowing clubs to at least get on the ground and start to train again. But equally, I would suggest that one, if clubs are struggling in whatever manner that may be with funding and the like, to continue to please tap into things that may be available for them through council. One of them is we developed a hardship policy. So for some clubs that pay rates, there's an opportunity to apply for the waiver of rates, the reduction, or even the deferral. Yep. So that's an opportunity. As you know, we've also instigated an initiative where there's rent-free and fees that we've waived for sporting clubs that are on council-owned ground. Obviously, as a council, we've continued to work and maintain on the pitches and the facilities, so that as soon as the trigger's pulled to play the game again proper, that those facilities are ready to go. And just continue to work closely with us as councillors as well, so that we can continue to help you and support the clubs to best possible. And ultimately, come October, when the council elections are on, make sure you vote soccer-friendly people in, like KYLIE and I, so that we can keep supporting you.
Well, that is a really good point, Eddie, that you make. And KYLIE, I'm going to ask you, because you are the deputy mayor and you're also a councillor and someone who's recently become involved with the council and is doing great things. We're blessed up in the northern suburbs having two fantastic football councillors. We need them in all parts of Geelong. We need them in all of the wards. So what would be your advice to a lot of clubs in the southern suburbs, the eastern suburbs, about people they must have community-minded people to get on board? What's your advice to any potential or prospective councillors what to do? What's the next step?
Oh, look, the next step is actually to put your hand up. And then, look, yeah. I know that both my fellow councillors, Eddie and Anthony, and I are so excited about the elections. And I think we're willing to help people. If anybody is interested in running, I think it's really important that you find someone that's either done it before or that has the knowledge about it and gives you advice. And I'm willing to do that. I know Eddie's willing to do that for anyone in the municipality. And I think this is about wanting to represent your community. And if you happen to have an extra soccer fanatic like we are, then we will help you, no problem.
Absolutely. Once again, guys, thank you very, very much for joining us. I know it's not that easy, but it's so much happening and having a real good insight. Like I said, we are blessed. We're blessed. We've got two fantastic councillors who are very pro-football, pro-soccer, that is, and who are always accessible to this program. So thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the opportunity.
Thanks.
Steve, well, a really, really good insight, really great insight into what is happening at City Hall as far as our sport is concerned. Look, I know there's going to be people who are always saying, and someone saying on the thing, oh, we've been missing the boat for decades. Oh, this is not a new idea. It was talked about in the 80s. But the reality of the situation is now, in 2020, we've actually looking positive going forward. We are, like, it doesn't seem like this could be a pipe dream. This seems like it could be a reality. May take a few years, but we are finally, it seems, heading in the right direction. Steve?
Yeah, it seems that way, Tonci. It's things like Western United coming to Geelong last year, which, you know, on the surface seemed like maybe a good thing, but then when they had to play in a 36,000-seater oval stadium because no other options were available, it really highlighted the lack of a suitable asset in a region of a high growth area and already a big population. I think we're something like the 12th biggest city in Australia and about the biggest one without a rectangular stadium. So
yeah.
But what it's about now is, now that we've spoken to, you know, people like Joe Plummer last week, it's not about sitting here and complaining and saying we're hard done by, we're the poor cousin to other sports. It's about putting our hand up and having a go and being ambitious. And I think there's a comment there from Santino. It says aim big, and that's what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
And it was good to hear just then KYLIE saying that she has the intention that it would be something with not a minor central stadium pitch there, but like a significant one with enough seats to be able to host the big matches, the you know, an A-League game, a W-League game, and so forth. And that was something we talked about last week with Mike and Joe as well. It's like that could be a realistic proposition in the next 5 or so years that the economic and investment attraction of having a W League team in town is not an unrealistic proposition.
And the other thing is, don't forget, it's been talked it's been talked to death, and it looks finally like things are going to happen. A second-tier competition as well. Now, whether the Geelong is involved in a second-tier competition, at the moment, personally, I think it would be hard to see that happening unless some big, unless you got someone like Cotton On put money into it, and I can't see that happening. Or something, But putting that aside, if there is a Melbourne club in the second-tier competition, they may be tempted to play a couple of games up here in Geelong. Melbourne City, Western United may still be tempted to play games, if nothing, FFA Cup games, pre-season practice games, the Geelong EDDY Cup, or whatever it's called, the Geelong Community Cup, all of those things. Now, speaking of which, it's time. It's time that we're going to unleash this new blueprint. Yes. It's one thing about this coronavirus and what you're not is the fact that we probably have a lot of spare time on our hands. Now, what I'm about to present, what I'm about to suggest is not the be all and end all. It is simply a personal opinion. Goes for about 5 minutes, and what I want you to do is sit back, relax, enjoy as we show this, I suppose, this blueprint, suggestion for how we in Geelong can take, our community football to another level, open up the competition, playing it in the off-season, but also look at how we can, as well, take our elite youth players to another level. Okay? Sit back for the next 5 minutes and take in the following proposal. This is a proposal for a Geelong and Region Summer Youth League, a revamped model of the Geelong EDDY Cup. And it's basically a proposal that's just geared to thinking outside the box, to try and be innovative and create something that hasn't been done in Geelong, and to take football in Geelong to a whole new level. A purely personal opinion. The aim is to provide the region's best young players an opportunity to play more games and develop as better players for career growth. It's also an opportunity for interested clubs to develop into year-round operators and increase revenue-raising streams and build growth.
It's an opportunity for clubs to trial potential young recruits for the following winter season. And it's also there to increase the level of local talent to provide more players for various football pathways. So aimed at that elite of the juniors and to also keep them involved in the game more. The aim there is to really have something happening in the off-season. The season would be played from October to December initially for approximately 10 weeks, and the aim is to finish by mid-December. Team entries could be open to any Football Victoria registered club in the Greater Geelong area, so this includes Surf Coast, Golden Plains, Otway, Colac, Ballarat and Wyndham. Clubs are permitted to field only one team in the league with a maximum.
We seem to be having some sort of issues here, so I'm going to go and talk over the top of this. So the competition overview, the aim is to have this season going from October to December initially, with the possibility of expanding into January, which would take you about approximately 10 weeks. If it was to go into January, that might be in 2, in 5, in 10 years' time, who knows. But the aim is to have these team entries open to any FV registered club in the Greater Geelong area. So this includes Surf Coast, Golden Plains, Colac, Ballarat, Wyndham. It's not for everyone. It's not going to be a case for everyone. And in some cases, some clubs are going to say, no, we're not interested. We're not particularly interested. Clubs will be permitted to field only one team in the league with a maximum of 18 players per squad. And being a competition that's played, in relatively nice warm months, from October through to December, with the final happening, mid-December, well and truly before the Christmas rush comes on.
Per squad.
It'd attract a major sponsor. Also, that's the plan. You'd think that it would attract a major sponsor and be attractive enough. I'm going to bring Steve on as well. Steve, can you hear me as well?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Yeah, I couldn't hear the video either, but I can hear your
the criteria for players
the different slides now. Yeah,
strictly under 20.
Yeah. So speaking of the next points, and we are having some issues tonight. But the eligibility.
My lights were flickering here before. I thought I was going to have a power outage during the previous interview.
The eligibility criteria for players would be strictly under 20, and that's the thing. With a maximum of 2 overage players. So the whole point is it's a youth league. We're trying to get the region's best young players playing. Now, this is all open to discussion. You may have a maximum of 3 overage players because it is important to have overage players in any squad. They provide that guidance. They provide that experience. Now, this is the fun. This is the exciting bit. In each squad, you could have maybe 3 guest players. So players that haven't been registered with that club in the previous winter season. They may not have been registered at all. So they may be players that are coming back after a few years from not having played. It might be an opportunity then to actually trial some new players. Now, this is the league format. The league would be a single division competition with teams playing each other once, depending on the number of team entries, maybe twice. For example, if we've only got a 4-team league or a 5-team league, everyone plays each other twice. The regular season will be no longer than 8 weeks. So you might have a 10, 12, 14, maybe even a 16-round season, but then you'd have to have midweek games. Now, that's not an issue, and this is where we may be able to have bigger squads. If you're playing Wednesday night games, there's no need for lights because daylight savings. Around about that time, you could probably have 2 games a week, no issue. A 2-week final series would be held at the completion of the regular season, and all fixtures would be free entry to entice more people to come to the games. The entry that you'd make or the revenue you'd raise would be through kitchen, bar, raffles, sponsors, etc. But then the aim is, once you've had the home and away season, is that you then have a 2-week final series where you'd be able to charge entry, and that money would then be split up between the various clubs. Steve, what are your thoughts so far on this bold, revolutionary new proposal?
It's funny, actually, Tonci, when we were chatting on the phone, I think the suggestion was that I'd come up with some sort of counter arguments to maybe refute the value of the competition, but
Geelong
I have
region.
to say, in all
Games
honesty,
fixtured home
I think
and
it's a
away,
really,
with all
really
clubs to
good
have
proposal.
access
It's
to
got a
either
lot
their
of
own
strength.
home
I'd love
grounds
to
or
hear
prearranged alternative home
what the
grounds.
GRFC,
The venues for the
some of our
semi-finals
young
and grand
players and
finals will be
coaches around
rotated
town
each year and would need to
would
be a
feel
grounds with
about
gate
this. But I think if I put myself back into the shoes of say 20 years ago when I was at the right age, I couldn't think of anything more exciting than getting the chance to play more games and in fine, sunny, warm conditions. And against players of your own sort of age, I suppose, as well, where you're not maybe going to be as intimidated by some of the hardened veterans, perhaps too. Some of the ideas maybe that we could add to it, maybe we need to use a bit of the historical angle of Geelong football and maybe name the competition or the awards in the competition after some famous players that burst onto the scene in Geelong at a young age. It would be maybe difficult to get a good sponsor on board because it would be, it's effectively just a youth tournament. It might not have massive interest, but I mean, that could be the key to unlocking it. And then the promotion of the competition, so people are aware it's going on, making sure that it's in the papers, that people are talking about it. And the other thing as well, I like the idea with bringing in clubs from outside the Geelong region. I used to like it when the EDDY Cup had Hoppers Crossing involved. It just added an extra element where you had that Western Melbourne angle, and it added more interest into the competition that I think was something that the competition suffered from after Hoppers were no longer involved in that competition. So certainly if you can attract clubs from the Wyndham area, from the Ballarat area, you could potentially have something big on your hands. And also, I think if it's successful, I can't see why this sort of tournament wouldn't be mirrored in other centres around, whether that be metropolitan Melbourne or equivalent regional cities of your Newcastles, your Wollongongs, these sort of places. And it could be a very good scouting ground as well. And, and if one day we end up having, like we've been talking about, one of the big things that we need to see coming into football at this level is the ability for clubs to be compensated with some sort of fee if their young players that they've produced are bought by other clubs. I think there could be some scouts there, and maybe some transfer fees might even flow into clubs, and and then we can put that money back towards promoting or developing the next generation of youth talent. So there's a lot to be, a lot of merit there. What about a women's tournament as well to run in conjunction with that? Would that be something we'd look at too?
I think absolutely. Before I'll talk about the women's, but I'll talk about the final system first. And it'll be simply a first versus fourth, second versus third format with the top placed teams, the designated home team. And that's purely for the purpose of the home kit, allocation of home dressing rooms. The two winners advance to the grand final. Two losers compete in the third division or third place playoff afterwards. I guess the other thing is the games would be fixtured home and away, with all clubs to have access to either their own home grounds or a pre-arranged alternative home ground. The venues for the semi-finals and grand finals rotate each year, and they'd need to be grounds where gate entry would be able to be charged. All monies from both clubs would be split evenly, and the most important thing is that the grand final, is held sort of mid-December, thereabouts, So I think that would be the big thing as well. The women's, that is an important one. At the moment, unfortunately, I don't think we've got the numbers. I don't think we've got enough numbers to have a quality type of competition. However, if you do open it out to outside the region, then that's a different story. Then I could not see a reason why we couldn't have, a minimum 4 to 6 team men's competition and a 4 to 6 team women's competition. And here are some of the potential clubs. Obviously, in the Geelong region, we're looking at clubs like powerhouse clubs like North Geelong Warriors, Geelong. But under that, I also put clubs like Bell Park, Geelong Rangers, Barwon, Surf Coast. They've all got very strong youth presence there in their teams. And I could see no reason why they wouldn't be able to field at least one team. Some of the other clubs there, Lara United have got a fairly strong youth contingency. Drysdale, Surfside Waves. Deakin Ducks could be a problem if, exams could be an issue. And other clubs could have that problem as well. There's no doubt about that. But I think this is the thing. At that 17 to 19 age group, you get a lot of players dropping out. You get a lot of players dropping out for whatever reason. By having some competition like this that is aimed at the under-20s or under-22s or under-23s or whatever the case may be, you may have a reason for players in that area to really stay involved in the sport. Non-Geelong region clubs, have a look at some of these doozies that would for sure be wanting to, they'll be itching to get involved. Ballarat City, an NPL club. Werribee City, an NPL club. Then you got Sebastopol, Hoppers Crossing, West Point, Warrnambool, Truganina, Point Cook. Now, these are the male ones. For example, the women's competition. Women's are big. You know, you've got North Geelong, you've got Geelong Rangers, you've got Galaxy here in Geelong. But further afield, you've got Ballarat City. Then you've got Point Cook, who are pretty strong. Hoppers Crossing, who are once again getting down their path of having a fairly strong women's team competition. It depends how far you want to go. But I do stress the importance is to maybe get it small. So we might only need a 4-team women's competition. I guess here's the thing. Maybe Galaxy players in the under-16 age group who haven't been getting an opportunity to play senior football at Galaxy possibly could play for a Barwon team or could play for a Lara United team or could play for a Geelong or North Geelong or whatever the case may be team. So it offers lots of possibilities to have something happening to fill a vacuum that we don't have at the moment. Now, once again, Steve, I stress the important thing here is this is just an opinion. And really, the only way to move forward is to get a task force or a group of might be the GRFC, it might be the clubs themselves, but it can't be the old Advertiser Cup where it was only a few clubs and it was run purely as a fundraiser and they weren't open to any innovative thinking. This has to be really, in my opinion, driven by the Geelong Region Football Committee in association and in backing with the Football Victoria and the clubs themselves. But not all clubs are going to be able to do this. Let's face it. There are some clubs that will say, oh, no, we can't because cricket takes over or our players play cricket. That's fine. That's understandable. This concept is not for you. But it is for football clubs that want to become 12 months of the year operators. Steve?
Well, that's right. The key point here is, and there's a lot of people that might try and refute parts of the story here, but the key part here is that there's a constant thing that keeps coming up at the moment in this shutdown period, and it's happening now because there's no games on. But even when there is the games on, that young players aren't getting enough games to develop to get to that level, whether that's to become a world-class player like some players from our region have in the past before, or is it to become a good senior player at a local state league club? Whatever that may be, you want them to have the opportunity to firstly enjoy football and develop to their full potential. So that is I think that's the core objective here from what I can see, Tonci, and full credit for nailing something as a concept that would be aimed at achieving that.
Well, here's my conclusion. It's a hypothetical proposal, people, purely derived from a personal opinion. Let's keep that. Let's keep it on the up and up. We would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What are your suggestions? During the week, email your suggestions or a proposal to communitysportsmedia@gmail.com. Ahmed Idris has made a good comment. Sounds good. Recently, by the time the EDDY Cup was organised and fixture finally announced, most clubs would have already arranged practice matches or are involved in other cups comps. Also, NPL season started in February and interfered with training nights, as with North in 2015 onwards when it started fielding youth rather than senior players. Being that more clubs are now involving youth into their teams, focusing the EDDY Cup into a local youth tournament is a good idea. I only disagree with bringing clubs outside the association. What have they done for our region? Keep it local. Good point. And what I would say to that, Ahmed, is that would be done if we can't fill enough teams from our region. So, and I totally agree. Give our region first option. It is a Geelong Region Youth League tournament. But like with the females, for example, I don't think we've got enough numbers and I don't think we've got enough clubs that would be able to field a under-20 competition. When most of the teams that play in the winter competition are pretty much under-20 players or under-20 or under-22 clubs anyway. So, but maybe this might drive clubs to really push it. Here's the other thing that you can do. A lot of winter sports people play footy, or they play basketball, or they play netball, or whatever the case may be. This might be an opportunity to get some of those players playing soccer. And guess what? They might like it so much that they end up playing soccer and don't go back to footy. Barbaros John Carroll said, good showcase, actors trials for the NPL clubs, the State League. Absolutely. This is where young players then go into the shop window. And look, you know, I'm going to use someone as an example. Let's say Barwon can't field a team simply because they've got a cricket uses their competition. They can't use any other ground. Howard Glover Reserve is getting done over, so they can't use Howard Glover Reserve. They can't use Surf Coast's ground down the road, or whatever the case may be. So they decide they can't field a team. Then you've got some quality players from Barwon, maybe say, for example, Milton Bailey, who crossed over there this year. He then ends up going to play for another team. He might play for Rangers. He might play for North Geelong. And guess what? Here's an opportunity for some of those players to get in the shop window of a higher-ranked club. Now, as a club yourself, you're going to want to keep your best young players. So you're going to maybe push to have a team fielded in this competition. And guess what? You don't then become a 6-month of the year operator. You become a 9-10 month of the year operator, and you become a fully fledged football club, not just a sports club or a recreational club or whatever the case may be. You become an actual football club. I would love to hear from clubs. I would love to hear from people what they think, and let's get the ball rolling. The coronavirus era is all about it's all about getting I guess an opportunity for us to start thinking big. As Santino Marmon says, start thinking big. Let's think big. Here's an opportunity to now start the ball rolling, because let's face it, 2020 is just going to be a stopgap year. It's a Band-Aid solution just to get something happening. The real changes will start to happen as of 2021 going forward. Steve.
Yeah, look, I think it's good. A good point again there, Tonci, about the current climate, and you know, and the young players, they're missing out on games at a key age in their development right now. So obviously, this year, is like you say, it's a stopgap. It's a bit of a write-off. But is this the time that we can sit down now as a footballing community and start planning for trying to initiate this sort of competition starting in October 2021, perhaps, and then start getting excited about it now and build the momentum up. It could be something that lives long in the community and develops many good players possibly as well.
And the crowds, you watch the crowds. The crowds would be amazing. Could you see, a Rangers versus Geelong derby, North Geelong versus Barwon, and a home and away. And this is where someone mentioned something about women. Well, how good would it be to have a females league and a males league acting at the same time, so you could have a double header every week.
Yeah. That would be the optimum. I think that would be the ideal model for me. Just that thing. I always like it when you have, particularly if you can double up with the same clubs. If you can have more than one team from each club playing, you get a tribal atmosphere, because hopefully the girls will want to stick around for the guys, and the guys will come to watch the girls, and it almost becomes like and with the young players too, it become almost like a high school sports day. A really good atmosphere actury. Would you play it as a nighttime, like an evening sort of?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, look, it'd have to be, a 7 p.m. kickoff type of thing. If it's
like a Friday night or something.
Yeah, look, if it's a Friday night, you could probably get away with having a 8 p.m. kickoff, a 6 p.m. and an 8 p.m. kickoff. You might have whatever if there's two games. If not, say for example, I'm using a club like Rangers that has got a men's team and a women's team. On 1 week, you have the men playing at home. The following week, you have the women playing at home. That way, for 10 weeks, there's going to be someone playing every game, every week at your home game. Imagine the bar sales. Imagine the kitchen sales. Imagine all of that happening. And it doesn't have to be all on the one night. It could be Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. And that way you'll get people going from ground to ground watching games, you know. But look, at that time of year, it's not that hot. So if you do have it during the day, it's not an issue. So if it's Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, or twilight, why not? You can have a 5 p.m., 7 p.m. kickoff. If it's a Friday night game, of course, you might have to push it back. You might have to have kickoff at 8 p.m. and play it under lights. But could you imagine the atmosphere? And could you imagine, you know, the bread and butter for everyone are the winter leagues. But now after that finishes, you finally got something to look after, you know. Someone did mention, by the age of 21, they're already they've decided whether they're going to play or not they're going to play. They want to break this. No, I don't disagree with it. I think at that stage, that's where you want to cultivate potential professional footballers. And they're saying aim it at 12 to 15. No, there's no interest. The people don't want to see kids play. They want to see adult men and adult women play. And I think that's where the Advertiser Cup or the Community Cup has been so big, because you've got the best players of that particular club playing or you know, at that level. And I think that's what we should be aiming for. It's not, it should be a competition that may have promotion relegation. If we've got 12 teams and you split them up into 2 divisions of 6, that would be the optimum, because you play everyone home and away over a 10-round season condensed into an 8-week season. And then you have promotion relegation between the divisions. But it's not a case, and you might only have prize money for the first division. You don't have prize money for the second division. And so the whole aim is to try and get into the first division. I don't know. These are just all ideas, and not everyone's going to agree with me. And you know, I'll look back at that proposal in a week's time. I might not agree with myself. So we want to put it out to you folks. We want to see, like, where can we take this discussion? Okay, but I'd love to see something tangible come out of all of this that we're talking about, Steve.
That's right, and people out there might have other good ideas that they can add to this to add even more value to the theory. So please leave your comments and your thoughts and how you'd like to see something like this conducted, because there's a lot of good footballing brains out there that are hiding away in the suburbs of Geelong. We'd love to hear your opinion too.
Absolutely. We've had some fantastic ones coming out. Barbaros, John Curra has had some great comments. Ahmed Idris has had some great comments. Bobby Hayes as well today. There's been some really, really good comments coming thick and fast. Santino always giving his 2 bobs worth. So appreciate that, folks. And
Absolutely.
You know, on that note, we're going to leave you with some food for thought. And Steve, big week coming up. I'm sure it's going to be another massive, massive show next week. But in the meantime, we've got Football Out West once again on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Now, tune into Football Out West this week. Craig's been itching to talk about a new concept, which we may actually launch as early as this Sunday. But we'll just leave it at that. We'll just say more announcements coming on Thursday's Football Out West show at 7 p.m. on the Football Out West News Facebook page. On that note, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, sorry.
Mate, on that note, I'm all talked out. And
I think the 4th official's holding up the digital board for 1 minute added on to say goodbye, and that's about all we've got time for.
Absolutely, mate. Thank you very much for all your time and effort, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Tonci. We'll see you then.
Absolutely. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of tonight's Geelong Region Soccer Show, episode number 40. Thank you very much. Keep those comments coming, and good night.
Good night.